All right, welcome to the Analytics Instrumentation Office Hours. It's the 31st of October, and we have 3 guests today. I was invited because we had a talk and an issue about the best way to indicate where events are being triggered in the web app. I think that's kind of the initial context. Could you mention? So I'm Jonas. I'm from the Analytics Instrumentation team, and maybe you could say who you are and why you thought it, why you're interested in this question.
Sure. So I have the first question on the agenda. My name's Emma. I'm a product analyst supporting growth who uses Snowplow heavily, as well as enablement who uses Snowplow for sort of unique use cases. Did you want to go around and ask other folks as well, Jonas?
No, I think that's fine.
Okay, so my question, which we can cover either asynchronously or during this call, if it's easy to cover during the call, or it can be kind of a follow-up issue. But just as a thought experiment, I was wondering if an engineer were asked to track clicks on every UI component within a certain area, and I linked dashboards, the milestones page, just as an example. So theoretically, if an engineer was asked to use Snowplow to track every possible click on this page, what would analytics instrumentation's guidance be on how to actually implement those events in our new system in a way that would allow us to understand exactly what is being clicked and where it is being clicked based on the data that we receive?
Okay, I think that's a cool exercise to do. Maybe I should just share my screen. So just to set expectations, I think it will probably be about me asking you questions, trying to understand what the important elements are that you would like to collect, and also to understand the use cases a bit better, as it was discussed in the issue that led to this call. We're working on some things, and I would really like to collect this input to use it in the development. That said, we already have some technology in Snowplow that you're already using and can use. So maybe we can use some of it for that, and you don't have to wait until we also depend a little bit on your timeline, how soon you need this available. But how about I share my screen and we can see. I'm sharing my milestones dashboard here. How's the link? Link is shared. And yeah, so you said you would like to track everything, right?
Yeah, there are some cases where a PM would say, okay, we want tracking on everything that's clickable within this new area. Usually it's like a new page or a new modal, but they'll ask engineers to track every click on things that are possible to click.
Yeah.
Is that the best example though? Because wouldn't you be able to just say, well, use the automatic page click event that comes with Snowplow and is automatically sending?
That would be an unstructured event. And what I would want in this use case would be structured events.
Okay. And why do you need a structured event?
So that the data is modeled correctly in our end databases, like our end tables that we're using. Unstructured data is not modeled in an appropriate way for us to consistently use that.
And when you say modeled, you mean like the label, the action? Is that what you're referring to?
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah, because the unstructured events don't have those. They have different fields that are like kind of oddly nested. And like Emma said, they're not appropriately modeled for like plug and play analysis.
So for every use case of someone implementing unstructured events for an analysis that we'd actually need, we'd have to create an entirely new data model in our warehouse.
Yeah, isn't that like though with the new way where we're not using labels, actions, we're using custom fields, isn't that going to cause that anyways?
Yeah, that's kind of the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Well said, Doug.
Yeah. Yes. So Emma, just to maybe rephrase it. So what you would, so you kind of need some kind of structure, but also some kind of like a structure hierarchy. Is that right? So, so similar things kind of have similar structure in the events.
So previous to the new implementation process, it was sort of unique to each stage, and the engineers within that stage or section or group, engineers kind of within the same family, would implement the events to collect the UI component name. So click button, click link, click tab, the name of the thing being clicked. So in the case of select project to create milestone, some teams, growth, I think specifically used this pattern where in that case, I could see that being named event action equals click button, event label equals select project to create milestone. And then we would collect the event category, which would include the controller, which would be something like dashboards milestone. So as an analyst, I understand from looking at that event record, okay, a button was clicked. The text that appears on the button is select project to create milestone. And this is on the milestones page.
And the milestone page you knew from the controller.
Yep.
All right. Okay.
But other teams do approach that problem differently. That's kind of the most common approach that I was trying to start a conversation around standardizing all of those things. But now that we have just one field to work with, aside from the context conversation, it's a sort of different conversation at this point.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, can you try to explain so are you using these events kind of so let's say we have different types of events, like one event could be that you click the bottom select project to create milestone. Another one would be that you click the, let's say, the first issue link here under milestone. Do you kind of use those in the same model, or would that kind of be like different buckets that you would always look at individually? And would it give any value that the structure is the same of those two types of events?
Yes, it would be valuable for the structure to be the same. Usually, in this sort of situation, say a PM is instrumenting this new page for the first time. Like, okay, people want to figure out how to navigate around to their milestones. what are people actually using and what are they not using among this page. If we were to do an analysis on the interaction with the things that can be clicked on this page for a PM to decide, do we really need to have this link here or not? Decisions like that, we would usually filter down to the event category or URL, depending on if we're capturing that information in the event. And then we'd look at all structured events within the same model. That model currently includes event action, event label, event category, value, and property, which have all been used in sort of different ways by teams. And then we would look at, okay, you know, what's the number of clicks on each of these things per day? What are people not using very much of? Things like that.
Okay. And so this.
Can I hop in with just one thing really quick? I think a lot of the tension here comes from being able to scalably model the data. So like Emma said, different groups can kind of have different interpretations of what these fields mean, what was leading to the inconsistency. But at the end of the day, those like out of the box fields were just flowing through to our data models without any need for customization. So to me, like the solution has to kind of work both ways. You know what I mean? Like if we're going to move towards a different solution, we need to be able to solve that problem.
Right. Yeah. But I think that's, but so Emma, how do you, like, how does this, the problem of different teams, different groups using, like having different conventions, how does that impact, yeah, what's the problem? How do you see that problem?
So historically, the main and majority of use cases for Snowplow was for tracking clicks on UI components. There are other teams that I'll put into a different category that are using Snowplow for backend use cases or things that can't be as easily categorized into click on name of UI component, etc. And so to answer your question about how do I see the conventions and lack of standardizations being a problem? So the reason why I know for certain teams that the name of a certain event is named as such, and it means a certain behavior was taken, is because I have an issue or some sort of documentation that tells me exactly what the name of the event that does something is called based on the label, action, category, and or property. And if it was standardized across all teams, instead of me needing to read through a bunch of issues and documentation to find out what a behavior is called, it would just be naturally called a standard set of values.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that, do you usually start when you start out, is that usually with a description of we want to track, we want to have insights into how this page is used or something, and then you have to dig out the events that kind of belongs to the different elements, or is it more the other way around where you kind of look at the events and then have to find out where they belong?
It can happen both ways, and it depends on how clear the naming convention was from the start. If it's really clear, then we can make a good assumption that it means what we think it means. Or, of course, if there's a YAML file for that Snowplow event, which is not common. But it will go both ways that you described. Either a PM will describe all of the things they want tracking on, and it kind of goes through a long, maybe inefficient process right now of like, what should we name this? What information do we want to collect? It's sort of decision fatigue, I think, for a couple of folks that are involved. Or we can set out with a set of events that we already have collected and try to hunt down whoever implemented them to make sure that we know for sure that's tracking what we think it is.
I just to jump back, when you said about PMs deciding and then decision fatigue, and this is the point where you would then it would be delivered to engineers to implement the additional tracking that you don't already have in place.
Yep, that's correct. I think there are
Okay.
some cases where engineers are involved in deciding on naming conventions, but ideally that wouldn't be the case.
Okay.
Doug, if you have any thoughts on that, feel free to jump in.
Usually, I've been pushing my team in growth to use the taxonomy that was deleted, but the taxonomy that used to exist that explained what each one of these fields were for. And we try to stick to a snake case thing. These things, of course, are hard to standardize on because we'd have to create linters and things like that to catch all of them and things of that nature. So, but that's what we try to do. Now, we also have in growth this concept of using tracking with GLEX, and it adds on a context for an experiment onto an event. So that's another wrinkle in moving to this new way, and I'm not sure how that will work either. But I had another idea too, and that was when I've had this thought before of like the page view events, all this render events that we do that we add on, it's engineering. I feel like our time as engineers could be used more efficiently. And if we could find a way to make the unstructured events richer or append to them in such a way automatically, you'd have to look at the Snowplow API a little bit more. The data that we need that they're lacking that we usually see in the structured events, then we could like remove a whole bunch of work for a lot of people. I'm not sure if that's on your radar or not, Jonas.
So currently it's not on the radar yet. I'd say it's a little bit further in the future. That's also why we're trying to get as much information as we can now. But yes, we both with like definition of events and metrics and like actually doing the instrumentation, we want to decrease the amount of work needed to do that.
Yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, as an engineer, if I'm asked for tracking, the only time I should ever have to add it is in the back end and for some weird UI manipulation. All the click events, the page view events, Snowplow is trying to give us that for free, and we're not taking it. And I want to find a way for us to take it and me not to do the work, and the PMs not have to write it down to tell me to do work, and I'm gonna not have to check it to make sure I'm doing the work, you know, all those things.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's we need to do something that is more scalable than having to define it all. I had I had one question. Are any of this analysis? So it's since it's only on Snowplow events, it's only for SaaS. Right? Would any of it be valuable on self-managed as well? And how, if so, how could you imagine that?
Yes, I think it'd be very helpful on self-managed. I agree with everything Doug said, if that's like a possible dream state to make a lot of this more automated. And we always just need the same standard information so that we understand what the event is tracking. Location, name of UI component, which we have a whole pajamas library of components that the team could leverage for naming conventions. Name of component text, so the text that's actually on the button or a link. And if there's like a value that's being collected, So that would be, in the past, it would have been on the event value, which that's a very rarely used situation. But one example could be like there's a form input and someone inputs the number 100, and that value could be then collected under event value. And then the fifth is sublocation. So that's like also a lesser needed situation. But if you can imagine, in this page, if there were 3 different sections of the page, that like maybe the same button occurred in each of the 3 sections, then in that case, we would need a sublocation. So 5 pieces of information that we consistently need across either SaaS or self-managed that I think all could be relatively automated.
I wonder how much of that the click events give us, or the page view events give us. I know the page view is just for, the entire page, so that's one. But the one you're talking about, the sublocations and things like that. When you say all that, Emma, I think category, action, and label is usually how we use them. And the label would be cover the uniqueness within the page concept. So how, I don't know. I think we should look in that page that link click event, because I know a lot of the ones we do are about clicking. And I know the URL is given in the click events. I just don't know what else is given to. Like, is there something in there that corresponds to what we're talking about? Or is it something we might look to try to add on automatically somehow?
I think one potential path forward there would be to engage the data team who model that data to see if that's possible, and then kind of look at the data that's collected there. I'm not sure how friendly the output is. It's usually something very robot-y and requires a lot of interpretation. That being said, maybe a good option is just to look at those events.
Two questions. How do you deal with if we're locking the text on elements being clicked, how do you deal with a potential change of the text?
No, can I jump in there from the engineering side? I try never to lock it to the text of the button, just for the exact reason you're talking about, because there's fragile to change. So I try to make a value. In our case, it'd be the label. We would try to make it a theme, about what it's about. Not, if that matches the text, so be it, but it's not meant to match the text per se, usually.
Okay. And what would the consequences be for your analysis, Emma, if a text is changed? Like, do you have some way of kind of patching in like two different versions of the same event, or is this just kind of like, too bad, we'll just use the new ones from now on?
Right. Currently, a lot of folks' analyses, including my own, are filtered to a specific value in each event record field. And so it would be highly impacted by that situation, because there are situations where I'm saying, give me all of the events for this event category, specifically where label equals XYZ, because the PMs are interested in this specifically labeled event. But in a world where we completely change the way that we're tracking structured or unstructured events in a much cleaner way, I can imagine that being possible, where we would have sort of an aggregated set of events that it wouldn't be a big problem if they changed, but that's a very future state. Mm-hmm. Right now, it would be a problem.
Okay. And for self-managed, we don't collect events, and we don't send events back. We have don't know how familiar you are with it, but we only send aggregated values back weekly. So only the results of the metrics are sent back. Is that something? Oh, go ahead, Doc.
When we started growth, that was the thing we were trying to figure out, was like, how do we get metrics from self-managed as well, right? And we could never figure out. In the end, it just became, it wasn't worth it for growth because of that loop you're talking about. And I know others have tried to, like, thoughts of like putting the snowplow data structure in the local GitLab database or something like that, and then shipping that off with usage ping, sort of a thing. But I don't think anybody's really, yeah, in the end, in growth, we've just decided we're going to focus on .com and extrapolate that out as meaning probably good for everybody else.
Okay.
To add a little bit to that, Jonas, growth for, when the team was immature for that reason, due to data limitations, they decided not to focus on self-managed too much. But now I think just due to the size of the team's not focusing on self-managed, but all of the rest of our product sections use the self-managed aggregated metrics, including
Including what? Sorry.
the enablement team who
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I also love Snowplow. So all the other teams are using both.
Okay.
Snowplow
Yeah.
and Spring.
All right. Well, I just think it's also interesting to keep in mind how we can. It's a little bit of a different use case where if you have like several. If what you're looking at is like a sequence of events and not just like the counts or aggregates of specific events, it's almost like you want to aggregate over like a path instead of over single points. And that is not something we support, and not something we, as far as I know, something we even thought about doing. But if it is the kind of the path through a part of the product that's important, yeah, that's something we have to think about.
You're basically we're talking about, like, for growth, that'd be like sales funnels, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So like a sequence of like clicking this, clicking that, clicking this. What are the like, how many unique users did that per month, or how often did that happen in the last month, or something like that. And we cannot do that right now. I'm saying right now, it's not something we have thought about at all. So I think that's also something to keep in mind, that this is for that kind of scenarios is only supported on SaaS. Okay. Cool. What's going on here with my Zoom? Anyway, I was just told I have 10 minutes left of my Zoom call. I really wonder what's going on with my Zoom setup today. Okay, I think I don't know if I will be able to provide you any guideline for that. I think I think right now the answer is we just do it like we always have with Snowplow up until now, and we will keep this scenario in mind when we extend internal events, so that we can provide the locations. Yeah, and I'm sure we will have a lot more questions to ask about that. Is that an okay place to stop that, Emma?
Absolutely. Thanks for spending so much time on that. And I know we're over time,
Yeah.
but I wanted to make space in case Doug had anything that you wanted to mention before we drop?
No, I just want to say, yeah, thank you for, I mean, my biggest concern from my point was to say like, you know, that image of like the guy pushing the square wheel with the wheelbarrow, and he can't be bothered to slow down and to take this circular wheel, right? I don't want to be that, but at the same time, I want to make sure like, you know, the trade-off for what we're doing still provides the same value with, like, you know, without more burden, too much more burden on the teams that have to implement it as well.
No, I think that's very good good perspective. Also, just so you know, the focus has mostly been for internal events so far to replace or kind of make a unified way of logging for all the stuff that is not like used done by standard snowplow. So more of like the service ping, and here we have same metrics available on self-managed and on SaaS, even though it's kind of using different technologies underneath. So yeah, there could definitely be a way forward that is, we're not going to move some of these things. We won't move into internal events, or we will kind of make it more like default snowplow for all the front end tracking. Yeah, cool. But Doug, you had another question.
Well, we can do that one asynchronously. I just,
Okay.
you know, the generator, I'm having issues with it, and you know, tried to use it, that type of thing, and too many files, too many prompts, too many like exceptions when I try to run it. You know, I just want a file created. That's all.
Yeah, say what?
I just want the file to be created. Like, what I want to do is go through a process of doing one event and see what that looks like, and using the documentation. I'm saying to heat this generator at the link I hit there, and it doesn't seem quite right of me needing 4 files when I only care about snowplow. I don't care about 28 days. I don't care about 7 days. I don't care about all I care about is like the one file. I don't care about the additions. I don't care about many of those other things that the generator currently requires. I'm either hitting the wrong generator, or need to have it, you know, need to tune it maybe a little bit, or be shown. But we can, I can do that asynchronously and find an issue or something like that.
All right, cool. I know we have some improvements to the generator happening right now, but feel free to ping me. I'm out of office for the next couple of days, but then I'll get back to you. You can also just ask in the channel in our chat.
Cool. I'll probably go that route.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks so much, Jonas. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.